I think we're here.
We're live.
Woohoo! Hello. Thank you for joining us. This is Book Chats with Mostly Books. I'm Jody.
I'm Jen.
The only other thing I think to note before we begin tonight's discussion is that we are, of course, alone again. So please leave us comments. We love hearing them. We will address them at the end of filming, since we are filming this ourselves right now.
You just see your little icons pop up, and it's like, oh, someone else is here.
Right, which we enjoy. So definitely do that. But yeah, we'll talk to you later.
Yeah.
All right, so tonight we are talking about The Girl from Widow Hills by Megan Miranda. Before we get too far in, should we start with the synopsis?
Yeah. So Olivia Mayer is living in this small town. I think it's called Central Hills.
Mm-hmm.
Or Central Valley.
Central Valley.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's approaching the 20th anniversary of a traumatic incident from her childhood. She was sleepwalking, got lost in a storm drain for 3 days, and they found her miraculously alive.
In the storm drain.
In the storm drain. Yeah. So the fallout of that created a lot of media buzz, and it just ruined her life. So when she turned 18, changed her name, moved away. Same difference.
Moved away.
And now it's approaching the 20th anniversary, and stuff is starting to happen again. She started sleepwalking again, and one night she is sleepwalking, and she trips over a body in her yard. As one does. And then that's where our plot starts. So she has to figure out, did she kill the guy while she was sleepwalking? Did someone else? Is this related to the incident from her childhood? And all
What's happening?
What's happening, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. It's a psychological thriller, so you're not really meant to know what's happening.
That was one of my better plot summaries.
It was a good plot summary.
It was more straightforward than usual. Usually I'm just they did things.
Right. Well, I think part of that is because sometimes fantasy novels there's so many things that you're trying to explain within the synopsis that you're like, well, maybe I don't need to explain that part right now. So it's hard to whittle down the core of that, where this is much more
especially if a fantasy novel is written in a non-linear style.
Right. Which we have, read.
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm excited to hear. This was your first toe into the psychological thrillers?
I think so. And
what did you think?
I liked it. You were worried that I would hate it.
I really was.
You were worried that I would hate it. I did like it. I didn't love it. It wasn't a 5-star life-changing read for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I did enjoy it.
Good.
Yeah.
Will you read another at some point in your life psychological thriller?
Yeah.
Great.
I'll probably if I'm going to read another one, I'm like, okay, Jody, pick one that you absolutely loved.
Yeah. Yeah. We should do that next time. I liked this one as well. I did not give it a 5 stars either. But it was still good. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was still everything that Megan Miranda does so well.
Yeah.
Which I like. It always seems to be about her plots are often about women who have come from something very traumatic in their past and have decided to shed that skin and start over somewhere else.
But then they can't really start over.
It catches up. Yep, exactly. And so they're thrown back in. Which I like. I think those are fun reads. Mm-hmm. I like to be messed with, so as I'm reading a book, I like to not know. So
I like to figure it out.
Yeah. I don't. If I figure it out, I'm actually very disappointed. I'm like, oh, that was too obvious.
It's I'm not really disappointed. I feel very validated that I figured it out. And often it's especially when it's a plot that makes sense, this is the natural arc of how this should go, and it says a satisfying ending, and then I'm like, okay, I'm glad this matched what I thought it would be.
What you wanted, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like to totally be thrown off in a curveball. I'm like, yes, they got me.
Did this one get you?
Parts of it did. Part of it I was like, oh, yeah, I see where that's coming from. Well, let's begin with Olivia. What did you think of her? Olivia, formerly Arden. Yeah. We should know. She changed her name to avoid.
Are we just going to refer to her as Olivia, so we'll keep it?
Yes.
Okay.
Because it's too complicated otherwise.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is the name she chooses for herself.
Mm-hmm.
I liked her more as the book went on.
That's fair.
At the beginning, we're not in spoilers yet, but so maybe I'll, like, address this then, too. But I didn't really care about her because she was very bent on her own secret, and she didn't necessarily care about other people. That's a little harsh. She did. But
she did to a point. It felt like she was very good at putting up a wall and being like, I won't let you get any closer.
But I'm also very good at seeing your walls.
Yeah.
So it just, I didn't really like her in the beginning, but as the plot goes on and she, like, cares about her friends, bit of a low bar, then she became more likable to me.
Well, in her defense, I think part of it was she finally realized she had friends.
Yeah.
It's which like was a new concept.
Yeah, there's a lot, like, going on that, like, I know why she is this way. Just, it's like, you get there. Just maybe she doesn't start out as the most likable.
Right.
But she doesn't need to.
Right. I think that's all true, too. You know, and with every, like, domestic psychological thriller type, I often find the main characters, which are often female, to be a little, like, whiny and maybe wanting to be rescued more than they need to be.
They make a point in that one. Her ex does. Remember? He's like, you like to be cared for. And she's like, that's not a bad thing.
I did note that. And I will say in this one, she wasn't the typical whiny save me person. She was all about saving herself in the sense that I know what I can handle and I know when to fold the cards and run. Yeah. So I liked that, but she was definitely a bit, like, full of, like, maybe just self-centered in the sense that she was so focused on surviving herself. Yeah. That she had no other option.
Like tunnel vision.
Yeah.
On herself.
Absolutely tunnel vision.
Yeah.
Which, again, we get why later on. That was important. But I can find sometimes in the beginning that to be very annoying when you read a book. So I understand why you didn't love her in the beginning.
She does get better. She grows on you.
Yeah. Well, and I think you said it right, too, when she starts to realize, oh, I have friends. I care about these friends in this life I have actually built here. And I think she finally decides maybe to start fighting for that life as opposed to running.
She does say that at one point that, like, she's coming back. She's gone somewhere. We'll say where later. And then she's coming back to Central Valley. And she's like, I missed this place. I miss these people. I miss my house. And it's like, oh, yeah, you...
Home. Like, when you finally acknowledge this is home. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure if we want to talk too much about the other characters. Okay, let's do really broad thoughts on other characters because I don't want to do spoilers yet. So, really quick, what did you think of, like, Bennett and
Elise?
Yes, Elise. I'm like, shoot, her other friend.
I liked them. The cast is pretty small of people we meet and, like, learn their name, and they'll show up more than once. So, like, you can kind of play process of elimination of, like, who's it gonna be, sort of. But I like them. They were fine. The narrative does try to point you to certain people in the cast, and, like, you can kind of decide for yourself, like, no, it's not you, or no, it's not you. What'd you think of them, broadly?
Right. So, I liked Bennett. I, appreciated that he respected the walls initially and was, like, kind of willing to work with her on that part because she was not very forthcoming on her past, which is, again, understandable. She really...
Not very forthcoming is an understatement.
Right. For someone who completely changed her name, moved away, and cut all ties from family. Yeah, so she wasn't very forthcoming. But I think he really tried to respect that, at least as much as he could. And I really liked Elise. Yeah, I don't know why I had her name in my head differently.
I need to make sure it actually is that, and I just, like, didn't switch letters.
I'm sure you're
around.
Right, and that I was just transposing it into Elsie. So, Elise. I liked her. She was fun and bubbly. I really liked the neighbor, Rick. He reminded me of people I know. Yeah. Like, just that really steady character. The go-to person when you, like, oh, I can't get my light fixed. Can you help me?
Bennett fixes her light.
Yeah, he did that time. But normally, Rick was like, did you check your lights? Have you changed your smoke detector batteries?
And she's like, no.
Don't forget to do those. When you first buy a house, some of those things you don't always remember in the beginning. So it was nice he was like, don't forget.
Yeah.
What'd you think of the writing style?
I liked it. There were, at points, like, I've never read this author before, and sometimes I find this happens where, like between sentences or like phrases, like there's a gap that I'm supposed to fill in with, but then like I don't get it because I'm not used to how they write.
Oh, interesting.
So that happens once in a while. So like I found that a couple times in the beginning of this one, but then I like got used to it as I went on. So that was interesting. I didn't mind I knew it was going to be first person. Like, these have to be written in first person. You can't have you can't have a reliable outside third when your protagonist doesn't know what's it doesn't work that way.
There wouldn't be a lot of suspense then.
Yeah, there'd be different suspense.
Yeah.
But like I didn't mind it because I like knew what I was getting into, I guess.
That makes sense.
And like expectations help a lot.
Expectations, yeah. I like Megan's style. You jump right into the action. You get going. I read like 100 pages in the first sitting. I was like, well, this is not going to take long. I really liked how she alternated parts of Olivia's life with parts of what happened with her whole drain missing. I did want to talk about this. I
really did like that part of this book.
Yeah. So, it's segmented with things from like other interviews from when she was missing, excerpts from her mom's book.
It's like at the end 911
calls. Yeah. So it was really cool to see all these other little pieces kind of filling in the blanks, I guess, of what happened those 3 days. Because if we ask Olivia, she says, I don't know. I don't remember.
And that, okay. Anyway. Yeah. We'll talk about that.
So I like that because, it also just kind of like keeps pulling you along as well. I mean, not that her part didn't too, but that part I feel like really was like, well, what happened? What do you mean?
Those parts were more interesting to me for a while in the book than Olivia's parts, especially in the beginning. Because it takes, I think, like 70 to 100 pages for you to find the body. So there's like other stuff going on before that because there's always other stuff going on, but I was just like, okay.
Well, and even that stuff was kind of just like the mundane job living stuff. I mean, not that it wasn't, I guess, interesting, but it wasn't really like what's happening.
And there was a part of it that I thought would be significant later that ended up not being significant. So
I want to know what that is later. Unless you can tell us now.
Can I tell them now?
Well, since it's not significant, yes.
Okay, it's her visits with she's sleepwalking again. So Bennett says, "Oh, go see this guy. He's a sleep specialist in the hospital." So she goes to see him, and he's creepy.
She calls him a sociopath.
And he's new to the hospital. Like he's only been there a few weeks. So I was like, "Oh, this okay. I'm gonna keep an eye on this." And then
it kind of fizzles.
Yeah,
that part does.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that she was only so nervous of him too because he was like described as like this dreamy doctor too.
Yeah.
Like Bennett's like, don't look directly at his eyes and you'll be fine.
I was like, what is there's like a lot of attention put on that. And then it doesn't turn into anything.
It doesn't turn into anything. Yeah, you're like, okay. I guess we should also note that Olivia works at the hospital. Did we already say that? That she works at the hospital as the administrator. She's a pretty high job, but it's a tiny town and that's why.
Yeah.
And so everybody, like Bennett, is like the head of the nurses as well as I think a nurse. It sounded like he's just the head nurse.
Yeah, he like does all their scheduling,
but he was also helping patients. So yeah. And then
Elise is a nurse.
Yeah, exactly, works there as well. And then Rick was just her neighbor.
Yeah.
So okay, what else do you want to cover before we ruin this book for everyone? As we do.
I'm not sure. I've not gotten the title wrong yet. I thought I would get the title wrong because I always call it like The Widow in the Hills or something, and I'm like, I just forget words or add words.
I was really surprised that Widow Hills is just the town where she was. The incident happened when she was little.
Yeah, but like I expected the town to have like more of a story. It's just like, oh no, it's just these 3 mountains that look like heads bent together, and I'm like, how'd you get widows from that?
Thank you. I'm like, I don't follow.
I was like, did they say something about like rain clouds and like tears maybe?
Yeah, because there's always clouds of rain over them, and I was like, okay, that seems like a stretch.
But how are they widows?
I know, right?
I'm
so glad you felt that too, because I was like, maybe this is just something I'm missing. There's some big like phrase or like saying that goes about mountains or 3 bent head. I don't know. I don't know
either
at all. Okay, so diving in and doing spoilers.
Yes.
spoilers from here, and there's a lot.
There's a lot. Yeah.
Okay, what do you want to start with?
Did you guess the killer?
I say, yeah. Should we start about like that with the characters? Like, did you okay. Did you guess the killer?
No, but I did. Should we just say who the killer is?
Not yet.
Okay. I didn't suspect the killer for the killing. I suspected the killer for something else that ended up being true.
Me too. But I was really surprised at the outcome at the end, yes. Did you think it was going to be any of her close friends?
Not after, like, halfway. I suspected Bennett, like, at first.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
But I didn't suspect him as it, like, kind of went on. And I'm like, it's not him. I didn't suspect Rick.
I never suspected Rick.
Or I suspected Rick of, like, something else shady, but not the killing.
Sort of true, but not true.
Yeah. Shady's not the right word. He had a hard past, too.
Yeah.
I never suspected Elise.
I never really suspected her. Okay, so initially when we met Bennett, I was like, oh, it's you. But that was it. And then I was like, I hope it's not you. Because he kind of grew on me.
Yeah.
Except I was really upset when he freaked out when she finally told him, or he found out about her past. And he was so upset and betrayed that she never told this part of her life. And it was like, come on. You kind of have to respect that she obviously was very traumatized from this experience. Yeah. She was obviously very, like, used and doesn't want to be and have, you know, like, there's reasons why she was doing that. I kind of get why she pushed her past away and tried to pretend it didn't happen.
Wasn't he still also kind of emotionally compromised that he'd gotten this, like, alarming voicemail from Elise? Like, there's been an incident at Olivia's house, and then, like, that's it.
I mean, yes, but no.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I think he was a little upset and was, like, stunned that something had happened and she didn't call him herself.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he was just so hurt that she shut him out and felt like he would react the way he did.
Yeah, I was like, this is very strong. Like, I get that he would be, like, very shocked.
Mm-hmm.
But,
like, he ghosted her for a long while.
Yeah, a bit. He did ghost her.
And, I mean, maybe he was also dealing with the trauma of the hospital and the whole, like, missing medication, that scandal that was going on.
Oh, yeah, that never comes to anything either.
Right? Well, okay, I have a theory on that when we get to who we think who the killer is. I have a theory on.
Okay.
On some of that stuff. So, yeah, aside from that, I was kind of just... that part really initially upset me. I was like, dude, she's still your friend. She's still who you thought she was. She just has a past.
What is that? Everyone. Was that supposed to, like, make him a little bit unlikable so we'd suspect him more?
I mean, maybe, but it never really pointed fingers at him either. He just started to kind of be a chump.
He did kind of show up after every time something happened to her. I noticed.
She did note that in the end.
Yeah, and I'm like, he's always showing up, like, but then I was like, I don't think this is going to be what this is, though.
Right. No, and I think he was kind of in love with her, and I think
she thinks he was or should be.
Oh, that's fair. But I think he was going to say it, and then they got interrupted by the detective when they were like, do we just want to talk about this? When he was at the house.
But he says, he's like, no, I like this, how we are.
But was that saying, I like this, but I'd like it to be more, and they just didn't get to say that? I kind of felt like...
I think so. I don't want it to be a Harry met Sally thing.
Okay, I think it was. Okay. I was trying... Okay, we covered if we didn't think them. Do we just want to dive to the...
Or...
Oh, we should talk about...
Who dies?
Yes! I was we're leaving a big part out. Oh, do you want to tell us who died?
Yeah, so we find the body... when Olivia finds him, she doesn't take a look long enough to notice, and it was dark, so she probably wouldn't have seen.
Well, true, and I mean, I think you wake up in the middle of the yard, covered in blood, and you're like, I'm not going to see who this is.
Yeah. It's Sean Coleman, because that name means so much without me telling you why.
Right? I'm like, oh my god.
It's the guy who invented Coleman lamps. No, it's not. He was the person who found her when she went missing. Mm-hmm. So he found her, like, in a storm drain, like, an access point, and he, like, held on to her till, like, help got there. So he's kind of a big deal.
Kind of a big deal. And he's also kind of the flip side. Like, you know, Olivia's mom went all into
the media frenzy.
Let's draw as much attention and money out of the situation as we can. Whereas Sean went, I don't want to be a part of this.
Yeah.
So we don't really hear much from Sean after the initial, finding of Olivia.
Yeah.
Which becomes kind of a big deal later on because his son shows up after he's dead.
Okay, his son I almost thought I figured something out, but it turns out I just did math wrong. Because Olivia tells Nathan, Sean's son, like, who she is, and he's like, oh, I remember I was 9. And I'm like, no, you're lying. You're not his son, because Sean was
32.
Well, I thought he was 23 when he found her, because I can't do math. So I was like, there's no way, you're lying. There's a hole in the story. It's like, no, I just can't do math.
That's really funny.
There's just a hole in my brain.
It may have been late.
Oh, it was very late. I finished this at 3 a.m.
That's really fun. It's not his son. It really is his son.
It is his son.
Who is there to, like, find out who killed his dad, obviously. Yeah. Although they were estranged because... Well, I guess I can just say this, that Nathan was really upset that Sean didn't take more of the media's attention. Like, but also, he felt he deserved some of that spotlight and the funds that would have come out of said spotlight.
Mm-hmm. But he also had another reason. Because Nathan started fine-tooth combing all the evidence and being like, the stories don't match up. Like, it says your mom made this call at, like, this time and was screaming, but... Your neighbor didn't hear you screaming till later. Mm-hmm. And other things. Or that his dad had said when he was drunk, like, oh, I walked by that drain access point every day and I didn't see her.
The first 2 days, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, 2 things. The reporter said they can't back it up. Doesn't
Emma.
necessarily...
I did like her.
I liked her too. Doesn't necessarily mean anything. But 2, I think he wouldn't have dug so deep if his dad had played more into the media and he would have got what he thought he deserved, attitude. Not to say maybe he wasn't smart to dig deeper.
Yeah.
Because did you ever wonder why Olivia kept saying, I don't remember. Like, did you believe that she really didn't remember, or did you think she just didn't want to talk about it?
I thought it was both. I thought she mostly genuinely didn't remember. And that she also just didn't want to talk about it. I did start to suspect her mother of faking the whole disappearing thing. Like, when we got that first transcript of her mother calling 911. And I'm like, there's something up. And then the book also makes a point of how the sentence of her mother's book is like, I knew she was gone even before I woke up.
Right.
And I'm like, all right, this is just going to be, like, cheesy intuition. But then it, like, kept coming up. And then, like, the 911 transcript made me suspicious. So I'm like, oh, there's something going on here. You faked at least some part of this.
Yeah, I thought it was super weird that Olivia didn't have any, nightmares or anything from her 3 days. All she remembered was confined spaces and stagnant, like, smelling water. But she didn't actually remember the water that, like, pushed her into the drain system and would have been, like, overpowering her often. So I thought that was weird. Yeah. Even though obviously trauma, you could repress those things, but I kind of was like, really? Like, nothing's ever bubbled up?
Bubbled up?
Ha ha ha. So I was suspicious of that, like how many times she said, I don't know. I don't know. Okay. So do we just want to spoil?
Yeah. Might as well.
Do you want to spoil for us?
Her mom's not dead. It's her mom. Her mom did it.
Her mom did it all.
Yeah.
Her mom
faked literally it. All of it.
Her mom, did her mom then kill Sean? Or...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Her mom, because her mom's been watching the house.
Right.
Because she's been, like, moving things around. She took the back light out. She took the light bulb out from, like, the little attic crawl space.
And the front light.
With the attic crawl space that just has a creepy rocking chair in it. I'm like, that's weird.
I think that rocking chair is weird, especially knowing that it was, like, Rick's son who lived there, and he built the house for Rick.
But they couldn't yeah.
Why did they have a rocking chair?
She couldn't get it out because the stairway was too narrow, so it just stayed.
Yeah, I just never understood why his son had a rocking chair up there.
I don't know, but like when she talks about the empty room in the beginning, I'm like, this is creepy. We're coming back.
Oh, you knew that it was going to end up there.
Yeah,
and it did. Yeah,
it did.
It totally did.
But her mom. So at the beginning of the book, we find out that like her mother has died
7 months ago or something.
Yeah, from like a drug overdose, and it took a while to identify her because she's so like deteriorated. And so her last belongings are forwarded to Olivia, and it's like a sweater, a tote bag with a picture on it that she can't make out. Turns out it was a tote bag from when Olivia was missing. And this like dirty old charm bracelet, and a burner cell phone, like a pay-as-you-go cell phone.
Why do you think she sent those specific items, like the tote bag? Do you think she was like trying to bring her back to that? But that's weird because of what she's like trying to trigger her. So we should also note that her mom totally faked the whole drainage situation.
She like everything.
Everything was fake. So I think that she was. I think you agreed with this, that she was to some extent like sedating her or giving her some sort of medication at night, which was causing the sleepwalking incidents when she was little.
Yeah.
And then something happened where I don't know if things got out of hand and her mom actually pushed her down the stairs in the basement and she broke her arm, which was noted many times about how this really is a weird break for a kid and a really severe, like, painful break.
She broke the upper arm bone. She broke the humerus and dislocated her shoulder.
Mm-hmm. So, needless to say, Mom was keeping her after the fall.
And her mom was abusing her, like, physically, otherwise, I think.
So, you think so?
Well, because they make that comment of, like, or Nathan makes that comment of, like, your mother was a nurse. She'd know how to write these things off or hide these things or, like, say...
Oh, I thought that was for taking the medication and dosing her with it.
Well, I figured it wasn't just going to stop there.
Interesting. But yeah, so needless to say, poor Olivia's broken her arm from falling down the stairs, and Mom stuffs her into this, like, crawl space behind the water heater in their, like, basement, which is why poor Olivia is having the trauma dreams of the confined space.
She has very intense claustrophobia.
Yeah, now, understandably, if you're being put in this tiny little space for 2 days...
With a broken arm and dislocated shoulder.
And being drugged up while you're in there.
Because Bennett sees, like, the scar at one point. Because she has, like, a very noticeable scar and a lot of scar tissue. She can only move her arm so much because of all, like, the surgeries.
Maybe
and
not
stuff.
even that high.
Yeah, she can't move it above, like, her shoulder.
Yeah,
And Bennett, like, sees it, and he's like, that's an odd injury for a kid. That must have been super painful. And she's like, oh, yeah, I must not remember because it was so bad.
I know what happened. That's why you don't remember, because you were being drugged.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Mom totally faked it for the attention and the money, I think, on top of the fact that we already found out she was also a drug addict at that time, not just later. But the most interesting part is that then she stages her whole death and comes back and was working at the hospital. So I think that's your thief for the medication.
Well, they say that, too.
And framed it with poor... Well, Elise, so that fizzled out.
Okay, because... I'll get there.
Okay.
So Elise was an addict, but she was in recovery, and then she's in recovery when she starts at the hospital, so she is clean.
Made the mistake of telling
Erin, which is her mother,
AKA Mom.
Yeah, Laurel is her mom's name, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, so she tells Erin. And then Erin's like, oh, you don't tell people these sort of things unless you want them to use it against you, which is not how that works.
That is not how that works.
It's not how that works. So she does pin it on Elise, but then, remember, Bennett catches her in the medicine room because she's trying to find, like...
Elise?
No, Olivia.
Yeah, well, Olivia was kind of doing a bad thing.
And then she finds that paper in his bag of the write-up, and it's signed by Bennett and Erin.
And you're saying that part fizzled.
Yeah, that part doesn't go anywhere.
Well, I think that Mom didn't think things were going to go the way they went.
Yeah.
And that she was probably doing a couple long cons to see what would happen with messing with her daughter. Which, why is she even doing all... Well, because it's the 20th anniversary. We're trying to bring back attention to the incident of the drainage. Yeah. Yeah. And then, oh my gosh, I was so surprised about the dosing the wine.
Me too.
I think that was the point I was like... like mouth on the floor.
Like, I knew, I'm like, she had to be in your house. Like, we have other proof of that.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the box cutter, but not yet.
Yes.
But yeah, the dosing the wine, like, because she's like, it just turns because I don't drink it fast enough. I was like, okay, that seems believable.
It did, but I was kind of like, that's sort of weird also. But yeah, so she's drugging because Olivia likes to have a single glass of wine at night with her show, but she was kind of then, because of it, that was when her sleepwalking started up again.
Yeah.
Because Mom's dosing her again.
Yeah.
And then, go ahead.
And the sleep, and Dr. Cal was like, yeah, alcohol can affect that. It can, like, it could...
As can medications.
Yeah, he's like, it could start this again. The only way to know is to do a sleep study, which I thought that was going to go somewhere.
It didn't.
It didn't.
Yeah. I also thought it was interesting when he did mention, it's weird that they would give you medications as a child to help you with your sleepwalking. That was sort of a flag as well. So yeah, mom was a trip. I think this is our worst mom so far. Yeah, I was glad that Olivia did what she did in the end. And that was justified. Yeah, right out that window in the attic. Not once, but twice. Because dang balcony.
Because her mom, like, breaks into her house and is trying to dose her again, and I don't know, is going to do whatever to her.
Yeah, with her hot chocolate now.
Yeah, because that's how she dosed her as a kid. That was so creepy.
Do you love it? As an adult, I'll give you a dose your wine. Yeah. That's messed up, people.
And so then Olivia manages to call for help and is like, while she's stalling and waiting for help, she hears the sirens outside, and then her and her mom fight, and there's like a window, and eventually pushes her mom out the window.
Okay.
What?
The one thing that was really weird to me, okay, so when the detective comes, she's like, I didn't know it was my mom. I had no idea. But the transcript of the 911 call is, she knows I'm here. There's no way out. She totally knew it was her mom.
Oh, I thought this was where the book was going to end. And I was like, no, it cannot end there. You cannot leave it there. But then there's a whole other chapter, so it's fine.
Where? What are you talking about?
At page 306.
Oh, okay. I'm on 320 and I have a very similar.
Yeah, they look very similar.
So I thought that was really interesting that initially she's like, I didn't know that was my mom. And then she did. I think she did know. And the detective was like, yeah, I heard your recording. I came as fast as I could. I thought that was all interesting. What did you think of the detective?
I didn't trust her for a while. I'm like, she has some other agenda going on. I just don't know what it is. And she kind of does. We just don't hear much about it. Mm-hmm. We kind of like understand that this is like an important case, that it could like boost her career, but that's like the only implication we get.
And of course we are only getting this from Olivia's side, who is already like, I can't tell anybody anything. They're always fishing for more. I mean, she was pretty traumatized from it. Like, all of that. Like, her whole view on people was very tragic.
Yeah.
I mean, she has no trust for anyone. And everything was, what are they motivated to get out of me? Mm-hmm. Which is so sad that that's what came.
But then that's like, it's like her mother, like, drilled that into her. Like,
of course. I'm sure. Like, could you imagine living with this lady?
No.
And, I mean, yeah, obviously she from when she was little on up, she was pushing her to get more stuff out of this. Mm-hmm. Work this as much as you can. Okay, what have we forgotten to talk about?
Box cutter.
Thank you. Box cutter.
So box cutter is the murder weapon. Okay. So Olivia uses it to open the box from her mother, as you would use a box cutter for.
Yep.
Puts it away. We don't really think anything about it. Then turns out Sean is killed. Elise is staying with Olivia just to make sure someone's with her.
After the body's been found.
Yeah. Olivia scratches her knee, or cuts up her knee, but it's not a big deal. Anyway, so Elise is like telling her like, oh, the murder weapon's a box cutter. It was in our nurse's group chat.
Oh yeah. So you think Erin was chatting about it?
Maybe.
Because how else did it get out?
But I don't think she was an ER nurse, so maybe it was just like
they were. But I think talking. All the nurses were talking.
Yeah, that's the point. Yeah. Like, yeah, or a morgue assistant or whatever. Anyway, so anyway, we find out from Elise that the murder weapon's box cutter. Olivia panics because she's like, where's my box cutter?
What kind of box cutter? Did it have a blue thing on it?
And she goes to search for hers, and she cannot find it anywhere in her house. That kind of plagues her for a while. Fast forward, she's helping Rick, her neighbor, unload groceries. He says he doesn't need her help, but she helps anyway. And then she finds the box cutter under a bunch of like bleach-soaked towels under his sink. And that's when we find out Rick, when she had went to go ask him for help, went to the body, took the box cutter to hide it and bury it, or get rid of it or whatever, so it couldn't be traced back to Olivia, because his son was involved, like accidentally shot his wife.
Yeah, I mean, he was definitely reacting the way he did for his son. Like,
yeah.
I'm going to help you any way I can to get rid of this evidence. Which
yeah.
maybe wasn't the best move.
So Rick is, like, trying to help, but she's like, oh my god, you can't have this. And at the same time, Olivia had found a letter from Sean that he needed to talk to her. So that, like, very much ties this into her past, and that Sean was there for her, and then it looks bad because he died on her property. Anyway, this is the part that made me mad.
Okay, good. Olivia
takes the box cutter to work to dispose of it in a sharps container in one of the patient rooms, because it's like, you empty those every day. You do not look in. You don't open them once you put the sharps in them. And she's like, I'll just dump the box cutter in there. It'll get disposed of. It'll be fine. And I'm like, it always goes bad when you try to get rid of evidence. Mm-hmm. But that never came back.
I say, but it never did come back. No. The only thing about it that came back was her saying, dang it, I really should have kept that for evidence.
Yeah. And there's, like, a little thing about, like, her going into patient rooms. And it's, like, when she wasn't necessarily supposed to, but... Again, like... That thread didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, because, again, Aaron reported her to Bennett about that, as well as the closet for medications. Yeah. But, again, you're right, it didn't go anywhere. Bennett got rid of it.
Yeah.
And that was the end.
Also, like, box cutters are heavy. And, like, if you're in a patient room, like, aren't the most things you're putting in sharps containers, like, needles, like, light things? So if you, like, shake the box a little bit, you're going to hear this giant thing clunking around.
She did make a point to shake it down to the bottom, though.
I know, but you're still going to hear it.
I also thought that was weird and kind of thought it would come back up as well, and it didn't. And I don't know.
Yeah.
It also, like, the report was super bizarre, aside from the fact that at the very end, she stopped trusting Bennett then for that moment when she saw the report. But even that didn't really go anywhere. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so the box cutter,
So do you wonder how long Mom's been just following her around? Do you think she's been doing it since, like, college? Just messing with her?
I don't know, because it didn't seem like she was having any incidents until...
She was working here.
And around the 20th anniversary.
Yeah, it's just so messed up. I just can't even imagine this upbringing. Yeah.
That's a whole thing.
That's a whole thing. All right. Well, I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad you're thinking maybe about reading one again. You should definitely do this one. This is still
girls
her best
that we've had sitting here and haven't even
addressed. But this is the one where she tells it backwards. So you start on the end of the story, day 15, and you work your way to day 1.
Huh. Yeah.
You got to come at it sideways. That makes sense later.
Okay.
Any parting thoughts?
I'd like the last third of the book more than the middle and beginning third.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did like it. I did enjoy it.
I'm actually the flip. I think I liked the beginning 2/3, and the last third. I kind of was like I get why the story went the way it did, and it was still really a fun read, but it felt predictable being the mom in some ways, and like that the mom was doing this all for attention and that whole syndrome that you can get from that.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, well, I've kind of read a lot of books like this already, but I don't know what I would have wanted that was different. Oh, a part of me kind of thought it should be her. I kind of would have been like, this would have been interesting if she really was the killer.
I never suspected her.
Well, and it's funny because she never really suspected herself, which I was kind of like, I don't know. I kind of might suspect myself in the sense that she had some very, like, physical outbursts that she can't remember, but people were injured when she got confined and trapped into spaces. So you already have that as a backstory, and you literally just woke up in this space covered in blood. Yeah. I mean, I guess it's a good, she knows herself.
I didn't suspect her until it got far enough into the book, and I was like, oh wait, there's someone else I should suspect. Like, it completely slipped my mind.
I
then
think
I'm
that would have been interesting. I don't know why.
I kind of wish, like, the mother is, like, pretty and, like, wholly evil, for lack of a better word. And there isn't any, like, complications to it.
There's no gray zone with her.
Yeah, so I kind of wish there was, like, a gray zone there.
Well, and we never even really meet her until, like, the last, 10 pages?
Yeah, the only gray zone could be that, like, her mother doesn't have her in this. She's not Aaron
/ Laurel?
No, Olivia. Oh. Olivia's not in the storm drain for all 3 days. Her mother, like, puts her there during the 3rd day. And that, or maybe it has to be the 1st day, because she meant her to be found, like, after a few hours, but then Olivia crawls away.
I still think it was the 3rd day, because she was trapped in that space instead, I think, and she was doping her the entire time with a broken arm. So my theory is that on the 3rd day, she put her in that other spot that she thought we'd find her and be secure in the drainage, and she slipped through
to somewhere else.
And
then, like, Olivia's, like, seeing footage of this, and she's like, my mother is genuinely surprised. Like, this is real emotion. Because her mother's like, you weren't supposed to go anywhere. You were supposed to just stay there and be found.
But instead, I actually lost you.
Yeah, and, like, that's the only kind of moment we get of, like, her mother having not an evil heart.
Not terribleness about her.
Yeah, but other than that, I kind of wish it had been more gray.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a very complicated look at the mom at all. Yeah, and I don't know how you would have done that without... I guess I could have done her perspective, but then the end wouldn't have been as surprising.
Yeah.
So, and it was fun to have a surprising end, right? Maybe it wasn't. I thought it was.
It felt a little out of left field. Like, because it was just like, you don't... Like, you know she's, like, faking the original disappearance. But then it's just like, we think this character is very dead, and it's just like a ghost haunting her, and it's like, psych! I've been here the whole time.
But see, what did we learn?
I think she's like the second character we meet too, because like it starts doesn't it start with her going to the medicine room, and she's like, there's this nurse with auburn hair sitting in the nurse's lounge, and that was her mother the whole time.
And there was one point too in the beginning where she thought she heard her mom talking, her voice, and she thought she heard her laughing. Yeah, we met her right away in the beginning, and she's like, oh, I'm just feeling remnants because of nostalgia, because she's passed away and I didn't realize it.
Yeah.
Did you also find it interesting how she kept thinking, oh, I have this vague recollection of this person? Do you know when she's like, I kind of feel like I know this person, they're very familiar, but I don't know why. She would run into people and constantly say that.
She had it a lot, which I thought was weird, and I'm like, it happens once in a while to everybody, but why are you so special in this?
I thought it was going to go a totally different way because of those moments. I actually thought maybe she's having like multiple personality issues.
Oh.
And so she would, like, her blackouts were actually her becoming a different personality. So she was coming across these people as somebody totally different.
I did not think that at all.
I didn't know. With psychological thrillers, you gotta really throw them out. Like, you gotta really go for the weird. Because that's what normally happens. And I thought, why are we talking about this as much as we are? So, see, I like to be messed with when I read. I would have been really surprised then at the end if she was two personalities and she had been doing it herself. Oh my gosh, that would have been really good then.
I don't always like those because it's like taking like dissociative identity disorder and it's like villainizing or stigmatizing it in a way, so I don't like to read those or watch those movies.
I'm not saying it's a good thing, and I'm not saying it's not a trigger point. Absolutely.
But that would have been surprising if it's been like, psych, this whole time.
I just like to be stunned in the end.
That's fair.
But you're right. It's definitely not maybe an appropriate way of looking at those things.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I'm good.
All right. What are we reading next week?
We're doing something different next week because we looked at the calendar and saw July had 5 Fridays. So
thought we need to do something different.
Yeah. We're just going to talk about a bunch of books, like shorter versions of this, that we've read and that, like, maybe we're like, oh, you should read this book. Here's why I liked it.
Your picks.
Yeah.
Staff picks, more or less.
Staff picks for the two of us that are here.
Right?
On a Friday night.
Yeah, so we're going to cover a lot of books in a short amount of time. Kind of the best of maybe what we've been reading lately. That's not already been discussed.
Yeah, we can't pick. We've been reading like a book a week, so we're like, we need to pick something else.
Well, and it just is a different format and will be more fun.
Yeah.
Spice it up a little.
And then we'll be back to normal after that.
Starting August.
Yep.
All right, I think that's it.
We're good.
All right. Bye.
Bye.